Hello everyone. As Andrew said, my name's Colin Burnett, and in 2018 I was fortunate enough to have completed a Nuffield Scholarship. My study topic was business sustainability in agriculture in North West Queensland. My family and I own and manage a 83,000 hectare beef cattle enterprise consisting of 2 stations located at Richmond and Julia Creek. My brother and sister and I are 4th generation beef producers, and our family have been invested in agriculture for as far as we can trace back, right back into the 1850s in England. Firstly, I'd like to thank my sponsors at AACo, CPC and ANZ Bank for their valued time and effort they put into Nuffield every year. I would also like to thank, I think they'll be in this room, Mark Bennett, Donald McGeechy and Troy Setter personally for their help during the journey. A special thanks also goes out to my family and friends for filling the gap at home while I was away on my travels. I'd also like to especially thank my mentor, Michael Lyons, who was a 2015 scholar, for his help along the way and contribution back to collaboration groups in the north as well as Nuffield. Lastly, I'd also like to thank Kate Anderson, my partner, for making it here today. A bit of family support was great. So, studying sustainability, I travelled to a lot of different countries: New Zealand, the Netherlands, Ireland, Belgium, France, England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, the Philippines, Singapore, China, Germany and the USA. Major highlights from this were visiting progressive businesses in the UK in the height of summer, learning about many aspects, as James said before, in the scale of China, and also the highly sustainable and low-cost businesses in countries such as Ireland. I also enjoyed constantly relating these business models from around the world to the ones in North West Queensland. I think sustainability now is a word used far too often across industry. However, sustainability for me means a prosperous agricultural industry across Northern Australia, which leads to the whole community viability. There are 3 key findings from my Nuffield Scholarship. The first finding is profit over production, and the second one is managing the changing climatic patterns in the north, and the third one is society awareness. In the first section, I'll discuss things such as intellectual capital, knowledge is power, and commodity trading. The beef industry in North West Queensland is at serious risk of losing future prosperity if basic business management principles, intellectual capital, climate change and the global outlook for beef aren't considered. The following presentation set out to address how agriculture in the North West Queensland region can survive and prosper into the future. The greatest challenges for the North West Queensland are the climate, population and location to market. Seasonal subtropical climatic patterns determine stocking rates, weight gains, breed type of cattle, market price fluctuations and times of the year when a business can sell. There are, however, also tremendous opportunities in the Northwest. New technology, increased farmer knowledge and demand for food is driving business efficiency in the region, which can grow the state's GDP greatly. This means that there are great future opportunities for farming businesses to diversify and reduce risk. Production has traditionally been placed ahead of profit by business owners and managers around the world, as I see with Nuffield. This phenomenon is also present in North West Queensland. It's not a new concept to most people in this room, but this report has found that profit needs to be focused on more than production in North West Queensland. It needs to be something that farmers need to refocus on. An example of this is at Ryan Farms in the Southland, a very productive area on the South Island of New Zealand. Ryan Farms were good at categorising things into different banks, as they called them. They constantly looked at the profitability of keeping Pasture Bank, their cash bank, and a well-qualified and valued staff bank, as they called it. The two Ryan brothers had expanded their farming business greatly, using their focus on profit as the first driver. As part of this profitability, Ryan Farms also focused on in and output commodity prices. A typical business in North West Queensland is heavily reliant on both input and output commodity prices. The Ryan's business model shows that hedging against commodity price changes will also be a major part of business sustainability in North West Queensland. This report also found that there should be a continued focus on output commodity hedging. Beef production on a primary level is heavily exposed to the in and output commodity prices in North West Queensland. Consider all types of hedging techniques from the very simple to the advanced. Examples of input hedging are buying in co-ops, buying in bulk, etc., as I saw in Iowa in the US. Output hedging examples are timing markets, value adding, and taking advantage of scarcity. The second section of this report addresses the variable climate in North West Queensland. It covers variable weather patterns, knowledge of soil, managing grass, managing soil moisture, filling feed gaps, and carbon output as tools to manage this variable climate. Changing climatic patterns are a problem farmers have faced globally. Typically, wet periods are getting wetter and dry periods are getting drier. This is not just a problem for farmers, but whole communities. This section has found that the highly variable climatic patterns in North West Queensland are changing, as with most places in the world. If the patterns are changing, how much and what will this mean for the future? Mick Keogh from the Australian Farming Institute says farmers want to be treated as a special case because the industry is so risky due to a variable climate. This report, however, found that risk is inherent in the business in North West Queensland and it should be part of normal management. Australia has the most variable climate in the world, and parts of Queensland has the most variable climate in Australia. Do we realise just how much risk there is, and how much time do we spend on reducing that risk in a business in North West Queensland? This report has found that climate risk management is one of the 3 key factors to business sustainability in North West Queensland. It is a must. The Bureau of Meteorology and the CSIRO have compiled extensive data using 40 global models to assess climate change across Australia. Data from a Trafalgar station at Charters Towers shows that in recent decades there is a longer period of dry weather followed by a longer period of wetter years. An example of this is the flooding at my place this year. We had 963 mils in about a 520 mil yearly average rainfall. We had 963 mils in an 11-day period. And since then we've had 7 months of no rain. As stated before, this is a global phenomenon in general, and it can't be disputed that patterns aren't changing. A presentation by Plant Health Cure in Holland made it glaringly obvious that soil is the basis of all life. This couldn't be more important than places such as North West Queensland. Terms such as grass farming firstly and the beef farming secondly are forgetting to consider that currently without soil there will be no grass, as it is the only medium we use to grow stuff in North West. New technology such as hydroponics is in its infancy in the region, and irrigation projects have the best return off the best soil as well. Secondly, grazers need to review management techniques with pasture and the highly volatile and changing rainfall patterns in the region. This involves techniques such as growth spelling, burning and so on. It also involves managing water. Water is by far, as spoken about a lot today, water is by far the most limiting factor in farming in North West Queensland, and managing soil moisture content is a major benefit to your bottom line. There's also room to fill feed gaps for cattle in North West Queensland. For example, I saw that in Irish beef and dairy herds, as they're outdoors for 6 months of the year and shedded over the winter and fed silage when pasture growth is poor. Irish farmers are really good at knowing the livestock's nutritional requirements and the economics of meeting it. This report looked at the economics and financial sense of it for North West Queensland specifically. With the climate and market forces obviously being majorly different to Europe, the most profitable figures are currently with managing weaner diets in the northwest, which a lot of people could focus on more. Thirdly, focus on carbon output and remember consumers' perception of carbon farming. As we all know, carbon neutrality is a major discussion topic with farming globally, and beef in Northern Australia have a chance to farm at carbon neutral. MLA claim that our industry is actually a lot closer to being farmer neutral than what people from the other side of the debate currently claim. It all depends on how you calculate it. This leads to the third and final section of this report, which looks at the global image of beef. This includes business ethics, society awareness, and quality of product. Findings suggest that businesses need to address the changing global image of beef and red meat producing businesses. The first conclusion to addressing this is to improve social awareness. This will improve the industry and the individual business image in society and lead to a more beneficial interaction with the local community. Business ethics is also a major part of these report findings. As I ended the Nuffield journey, I probably placed society awareness at the bottom of my list of importance of study. This changed dramatically over the course of my study. Fred Appleton, a 2015 Nuffield Scholar, studied markets, organic beef production, and dehorning and castration. According to his report, he came away with a clear understanding that your story is basically the most important part of your social licence when producing beef. Part of your story is maintaining high ethical standards to produce a sustainable product. Farmers around the world are becoming more aware of the importance of consumer perception of products they produce. Price, country of origin, health and safety, food integrity and transparency, animal welfare, carbon footprint, and people's diet choices are just a few of the factors that consumers place importance on. These should be remembered that they're highly relevant to primary producers in the northwest. Large export markets for Australian beef, such as Japan and the USA, have similar ethical concerns. They want to know more and more how the product is produced in North West Queensland due to consumer demand for this. A recent MLA report has found that beef producers must focus attention on meeting consumer expectations sooner rather than later to maintain our foothold in the market. With so many international competitors producing and trading beef, Australian beef faces a large threat of losing a foothold in the market. Beef producers in North West Queensland, however, have a great story to tell in a global marketplace, which was a major finding out of my Nuffield Scholarship. Whilst listening to an ANZ Bank presentation in Singapore, the speaker stated that there is a bigger trend from consumers wanting more organic and better quality produce that complies with all of the ethical concerns mentioned previously. On our Nuffield study, we learnt that, for example, Vietnam has a faster growing middle class than China, and their demand for quality beef is growing rapidly. What can be celebrated is that North West Queensland has produced a clean and green, grass-fed product for a long time. Land clearing is at a minimum in our region compared to other parts of the state. This means that there is little to no deforestation to produce beef in North West Queensland, adding to environmental sustainability in consumers' eyes. This is unlike more intensive farming practice, for example, in dairies in New Zealand and Europe, and the industry doesn't produce unsustainably high levels of nitrogen and phosphate per hectare. Also, the use of antibiotics and shedding livestock in a highly extensive environment is rare, which adds to a clean pasture-based beef image. Overall, this report finds that there is a positive outlook for agriculture in North West Queensland if these 3 points talked about today are addressed. Thank you very much.